Okay, so just as a heads up, this is gonna be one of those less prepared one take, cause after all the last few days and the way I made my videos, I just needed one of these again, just to feel better. Okay, so today, Bluboo S1, and that's one of these kind of bezel-less phones. Once again, actually a quite cheap one, costs around $170, maybe with a coupon code even cheaper, but we'll see about that if it's any good, because on paper it definitely had a lot of potential. I have some mixed feelings. You'll see what I mean. Okay, first of all, the design. As you can see, it looks a lot like the Maze Alpha, just in smaller version, which is definitely not a bad thing, because on that one, so people said that it's kind of just rearranging the bezels. But in this case, I actually don't feel it's the way here, because as you can see, the bezels are way smaller on all sides, and the one at the bottom actually isn't even that small. And this phone is a 5.5 inch, and as you can see, it is actually less tall, just a little bit though, than a 5.51 inch or so. It is actually smaller in terms of width, maybe not so much, because this feels just about as a 5.5 inch. And in terms of build quality, the one thing that I could complain a little bit about is that the oleophobic coating isn't the best, but it's fine. I've definitely seen way worse ones, but nah, as you can see, it's good. It's just not quite as good as on a flagship, but that is to be expected without any issues. Same on the back. Doesn't really feel hollow in my opinion, actually feels nice. What I don't like so much though are the slippery sides. So if you try to copy the Xiaomi Mi Mix, then please don't copy the slippery sides, because this is just something you will have to get used to, maybe a little bit more. If you use it in a case or so, don't worry. Button placement, I like a lot. Seems just about right to me. Nice audible feedback, tactile feedback, positioning is nice, all good here. The device overall feels very smooth. There is no bad transition in terms of kind of glass, so everything feels smooth. And it is well done. It definitely feels solid, it doesn't creak. So just in terms of build and design, in my opinion, they did a nice job. Not maybe quite so much in terms of design when it comes to a few things that they just didn't include, because yes, we have completely flush camera, which is nice, a dual cam with the LEDs. We have nothing on the top. We have a SIM card and SD card tray on the left. On the bottom, USB Type-C, the speaker on the right, and on the left side we have the microphone. And if you are looking for the headphone jack, here it is. Yeah. Unfortunately not included in the device itself. That's a bummer. But other than that, I like the bezels. I think they are nicely done. In this case, as you can see here, of course, maybe try to find something that doesn't have the black border. Yeah, this is moderate. They are on the sides, but for a device of this price range, I'm definitely not gonna complain about anything about here. Like I said, the worst thing, which is actually still on a very good level, is the oleophobic coating. But let's just forget that. Now display. We have mirror vision, super nice. Contrast, saturation, all that can be changed, but as you can see, I use standard mode because that was completely fine for me. Also, maximum brightness was fine. Colors, no complaints, no complaints. Viewing angles are stable. White point was already set good. A little bit colder out of the box, but you can change that. Black levels are good. What I have noticed though, and I will try to show this right now to you. Okay, if you see this, I don't think you will see this on video, but there is a little bit of some weird kind of second edge where the colors just are a little bit off. And you will see this mostly just on gray. I never noticed it otherwise, but here it is like a little bit of some deeper gray. So kind of like on screen defect or something like that. It's a little bit hard to show off on the video. Maybe you can see this. There is a little bit of an extra border around. I don't know if you should bother about it. Like I said, I only noticed it on gray and it didn't really bother me in normal use at all, because no matter where you are, you won't see this. So don't get maybe too freaked out about it. But otherwise, I think it is a very good screen actually besides of that. Now, what about the speaker? Speaker, I would say, is decent. The maximum volume is good enough. Quality though, it does distort a little bit. There is some little bit of crackling in it if you are at low volumes. So I would say decent to maybe good, because it's loud enough in most cases, but it doesn't sound really all that great. What is though actually really good is the headphone jack, because good quality, actually some nice oomph behind the sound. So a little bit bass boost, just a little bit, but I actually like that. So okay. Now performance. Let's end all the apps and check how snappy or not it is. So let's launch a few apps. And as you can see, the Helio P25, once again, this is in sport mode, not the normal mode, so this is in full power mode. I have to say, performs absolutely nice, but it does not unfortunately perform as good as it did on the Maze Alpha, because if that would have been the case, I would have said very good performance without an issue. But what I see here is, I would say, really good. Just a little bit behind, as you can see here scrolling. Okay, this is not the normal size. Here, as you can see, absolutely nice. And in pretty much most instances, this is absolutely lag-free. I have no complaints. It's just not quite as lightweight, not quite as polished, and just lagging a little bit compared to what the Maze Alpha did with the Helio P20. But it's definitely better than something like the Verni Mouse Pro or other phones that I had also with the P25. So not quite as good, but still really good without an issue. Because as you can see, also multitasking works fine. It's, of course, not the most responsive phone. But as you can see, this, in my opinion, looks totally fine. Also, the double tap works absolutely nice. One thing that I have to show off, though, is, which is a little bit weird, since you, for example, are in this here. The menu button actually is the recent apps button. I'm not quite sure why that is the case. That was the same thing also on the Maze Alpha. A little bit of some software bugs, even though I did actually get an update. Now, gaming performance is absolutely fine. I don't need to talk about that. Battery life though. Full charge takes 2 hours and 20, and here I have really hard doubts that this is actually packing a 3500 mAh battery. Why? Because the Maze Alpha had a 4000 mAh battery, and the battery life, even though it has a 6-inch screen, was way better. Because what I got in here, I don't know why, is not that great, because I would say on mobile data like maybe 4.5 hours in use. And on Wi-Fi Lite, maybe 5 to 6 hours. So still quite good, really good maybe. I'm not quite so sure about that rating when I give it that, but that's actually not that bad. But the Maze Alpha got like 8 hours or something like that, so it feels also weird. And it charges like 5 minutes longer than the 4000 mAh battery of the Maze, so not quite so sure about that. Especially the standby drain here wasn't as good on the Maze Alpha, not even nearly as good. So either it lacks some optimization, or the battery just isn't as big as it is called out to be. Yeah, okay. But we get to that. Now, here you can see the default launcher, and this is the Phoenix launcher or something like that. As you can see, I didn't change the icons. This is how they are out of the box. If you want something else, just use a third-party launcher. Once again, the black kind of stock Android quick settings look, but the rest is stock Android. You won't really get much else, because as you can see, fingerprint. Of course, again, the extra option for the tap on the fingerprint reader for the video player and so on, home and such. And talking about the fingerprint reader, I have to quickly just show it because I forgot it earlier. It is a little bit slow and it is a little bit unreliable, because of course now that I'm trying to work it properly, but if you just usually normally had it in your hands, it wasn't the best one. That is a little bit weaker than it should be. Gesture unlock, once again, you have these kind of off-screen gestures, way too slow, just pretty much forget about it, but you have double tap to wake in case you want to use that. Gesture motions, yeah. I don't really need to talk much about that. I don't think it's necessary. Android 7.0, so you are quite new in that regard. I don't think you will get Oreo, because these phones just get really a proper support, but yeah, let's forget it. And talk about the cam. And the selfie cam, I don't know what's wrong with that, and I actually did some reshoots, but this to me looks almost like VGA. Where the Maze Alpha had actually a really good front-facing camera. I'm so disappointed that this is not the case. This is completely weird. I have no idea what to say, and therefore I want to quickly get through with that, because this, the face already says it, is not good. Low light, also not that great. Acceptable maybe at best, because of course the autofocus and shutter is very slow. Picture is quite grainy. Sometimes you get decent shots, but that's just about it. Outside, actually, though, surprisingly okay. So I would say this is at least decent, because if you have the proper temper to wait a little bit for the autofocus not to flip out, then you can get nice shots. I would say maybe even quite good pictures, because as you can see here, but then this happens so often. The autofocus is so unreliable, and sometimes it has it in focus just in the moment as you want to hit the shutter button. It says, no, I'm just going to lose focus again. And that was very annoying, because otherwise, as you can see, the pictures are decent, absolutely okay. Here, once again, this is one of these pictures where it said, no focus here. And the next second it was fine. And this actually looks totally okay for a camera of this price range. This is with HDR, where it said no focus again. And here with, so HDR definitely overexposes. So I would say let's just forget about that. Otherwise, yeah, the autofocus is the big issue here. Even though I would say otherwise, yeah, decent, fine cam. And yeah, about that bokeh mode, forget it. As you can see here, this is pretty much in all the cheap phones a bokeh mode that you should not even consider to be using. Okay. Just real quick, the video. Yeah, as you can see here, the autofocus here was even more so annoying because at the slightest movement, it's always readjusting the focus. So it gets the focus done here, but as you can see, it's always jumping in, jumping out, and then it's wobbling, and the quality definitely isn't all that sharp. This does not really look like 1080p to me. And it's so nervous and yeah, so annoying. We can skip that. The weird thing though is the front-facing cam, 480p. That's the maximum you will get. Actually doesn't look as bad as it is on the Maze Alpha. So here actually I would say this is better because as you can see here, microphone sound was also okay. Of course this is still a poor cam, don't get me wrong, but it's not as poor as I actually would have expected. So let's get to the pros and cons, and I didn't have them prepared, so I will try to make it right out of my mind right now. Okay, design, I actually like it. It's a little bit slippery, but it has this kind of aspect of this bezel-less device that I like. Fingerprint reader is annoying. That's not a pro, that's actually a con. The rest buttons, the quality is absolutely fine. The display, I would say at least really good, if not even very good, because I liked it. For this price, let's call it really good. Then the speaker, decent at best. Maybe good or okay, because it's good enough in most situations. Headphone jack was really good though. Performance, I would say also really good, almost very good. So with some little polish, if it gets on the Maze Alpha level without an issue, very good. Then battery life, I would say good, quite good. That's what I can say. Stock software, all that is fine. Updates and so on won't be really a big thing. Now camera, front-facing cam, poor. Front-facing video, actually not that poor, but still not good. Low light cam, acceptable maybe. Then the main cam actually quite good. The video cam, nah, forget it. Not that great is, if I would have to put it on maybe, just to mention it slightly, the oleophobic coating isn't the best. It feels a little bit sticky, but it's actually easy to clean, so not that big of an issue. Then, display's fine. Sound, a little bit less crackling and distortion in the speaker would be fine. Performance, not a problem. Battery life, not as good as it could be. The camera, yeah, that's the big thing. So let's cover that and get to the conclusion. 170, maybe with a coupon code cheaper, I don't know yet. Can I recommend it? That's the problem. On paper it looked so fine and it has some good aspects, because the aspects that it needs for me are actually quite solid, because the build is nice, the design is nice, I like the display, the sound is good enough, the performance is actually surprisingly good, and the battery life is good enough. Now the problem is, it is not what the Maze Alpha was just in a 5.5 inch, because the Maze Alpha, in my opinion, which pretty much costs almost the same, like maybe 20-30 bucks more, is actually the noticeably better device in the aspects that are more important for me, because the cam, not great on both, but there we had a way better battery life, the screen was even nicer, the speaker was louder, the build quality was a little bit stronger. So for $160, $170, it's not bad. But there are more polished devices, just not with this kind of bezel-less design. You could go for something like a Xiaomi Redmi Note 4. I think this is still the better overall choice, or if you want to pay something more. But if you want to import a phone, I'm not going to say it's a bad phone. If you don't care about the camera at all, and if all the things that I called out to be good are okay for you, sure, and if the price maybe drops a little bit more. But I've seen people that also are very interested in, for example, like the Humidigi Crystal, that cost like 100 bucks, which is still noticeably cheaper than this one, but it has a super low-end MediaTek SoC and all the rest. So if you want bezel-less in a smaller form factor, it's actually not that bad, but it's not quite good enough for me to give it a proper recommendation. I told you the good sides, I told you the bad sides. You have to kind of make the rest out of what you want, because it had potential. And if they would have just maybe put in a little bit more polish, or just a proper components like the camera. What's with the front camera going on? Weird. Okay, so let's just end this. This was good enough for a one taker, for my opinion, because I got all the info out, and the rest is up for you to decide. If you have any questions, though, you can leave me down there below and I will answer them. Otherwise, have a nice day. Bye. Okay, I actually got it right this time.